The door to the men's room slammed open like a gunshot in a library. And there he was, Arthur, the hulking security guard from the club downstairs, his broad shoulders filling the frame, eyes wild with something I couldn't place. "You think you can just waltz out after that?" he growled. His voice a low rumble that echoed off the grimy tiles, pinning me against the sink before I could even turn on the faucet. My heart jackhammered in my chest, not from fear exactly, but from the electric charge in the air, the way his breath hit my neck like a promise of storm clouds gathering. I'd come to the Pulse that night to drown out the noise in my head. Sean Riley, 28 and freshly single after my boyfriend of 3 years decided he preferred the stability of his ex's Upper East Side penthouse over our cramped Brooklyn walk-up. New York had chewed me up before. The freelance graphic design gigs that paid in ramen and regret. The endless subway rides where I'd sketch strangers' faces to remind myself I was still alive. But tonight, fueled by 3 whiskeys and a playlist of indie heartbreak anthems, I danced like the world was ending. And maybe it was. Arthur stepped closer, his uniform shirt straining against muscles honed from years of bouncing drunks and breaking up fights in the seedy Hell's Kitchen dive. He was all edges, sharp jawline shadowed with stubble, tattoos peeking from his collar like secrets inked in haste. "I saw you out there," he said, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent shivers racing down my spine. "Dancing like you were begging for trouble. Or salvation. Which is it?" "Sean." How the hell did he know my name? The question hung unspoken as he reached past me for the paper towel dispenser, his arm brushing mine, deliberate and unapologetic. The bathroom smelled of cheap pine cleaner and stale regret, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry hornets. I swallowed hard, my reflection in the cracked mirror showing a guy with messy auburn hair and eyes too green for his own good. Eyes that had gotten me into trouble more times than I could count. "You followed me in here," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "That's against policy, isn't it? Or do security guards get a free pass to stalk?" He chuckled, a sound like gravel under tires, and leaned in until our faces were inches apart. Close. He smelled like leather and faint cologne, something woodsy that clashed with the club's fog of sweat and smoke. Policies for the suits upstairs. Down here, it's survival. His hand gripped the sink edge beside mine, knuckles white, and for a split second, I thought he might kiss me or punch me. The uncertainty was intoxicating, a high sharper than any shot at the bar. That's when it happened. As he shifted, his sleeve rode up, revealing not just the tattoo I'd glimpsed, a coiled serpent swallowing its tail, but a thin silver bracelet dangling from his wrist, engraved with 2 initials intertwined, S and A. My initials. Sean and Arthur. The world tilted, the bathroom spinning like a bad acid trip I hadn't taken. "What the fuck?" I breathed, grabbing his wrist before he could pull away. The metal was warm from his skin, the engraving worn but unmistakable. "Where did you get this?" His eyes darkened, a storm front rolling in over calm seas. He didn't yank free. Instead, he held my gaze, unblinking. "It's mine," he said simply, but there was a crack in his voice, a fissure wide enough to swallow us both. "Or it was. Until I lost it. Until I lost you." The words landed like a sucker punch, knocking the air from my lungs. Lost me? We'd never met. I'd remember a guy like Arthur, 6'3" of quiet intensity, the kind of presence that made rooms hush. But as fragments flickered at the edges of my memory, summer rains in Central Park, stolen kisses in alleyways behind jazz clubs, A bracelet slipped onto my wrist during a midnight vow under the Brooklyn Bridge. Doubt crept in like fog off the Hudson. Was this some twisted pickup line? A club rat's ploy to get laid? Or was the whiskey lying to me, unearthing ghosts I'd buried deep? Arthur, I whispered, the name tasting foreign yet familiar on my tongue, like a song lyric from a dream. He flinched at it, his grip tightening on the sink until the porcelain creaked. You don't remember, he said. Not a question, but a diagnosis. The accident. The fire. They said you'd never wake up the same. Accident? Fire? My mind reeled, grasping at smoke. Last I knew, my biggest catastrophe was Jake packing his Louis Vuitton duffels and calling me a phase on his way out. But Arthur's eyes, hazel flecked with gold, brimming with a pain so raw it mirrored my own, didn't lie. He released my wrist gently, as if afraid I'd shatter, and pulled a faded photo from his pocket. Two young men, arms slung around each other on a Coney Island boardwalk, grins wide and unscarred by time. Me, unmistakably, but younger, freer. And him, beside me, bracelet glinting in the sun. The hook sank deeper. This wasn't a flirtation, it was a resurrection. And as the club's bass thrummed through the walls like a heartbeat refusing to flatline, I realized the night I'd come to forget was unraveling into the one I'd spend a lifetime remembering. We stumbled out of the bathroom into the throbbing chaos of the pulse, Arthur's hand firm on my elbow, guiding me through the crowd like he owned the shadows. Bodies writhed under strobing lights, drag queens in sequins, tech bros nursing craft beers, the queer underbelly of Manhattan pulsing with unapologetic life. But all I could focus on was the heat of his touch, the way it anchored me against the vertigo threatening to pull me under. Talk to me, I demanded once we hit the alley behind the club, the November chill biting through my thin Henley. Cigarette butts crunched under our boots, graffiti-scrawled walls closing in like judgmental whispers. Arthur lit a smoke, the flame illuminating the hard lines of his face, and exhaled a plume that hung between us like a veil. 2 years ago, he started, voice steady but laced with gravel. We were everything. You, the artist with dreams bigger than this city. Me, the bouncer saving every penny to get out of my dead-end life in Queens. We met at a protest. Pride after-party turned riot when the cops showed. You threw a bottle. I shielded you. From there, fireworks. I leaned against the brick, arms crossed to ward off the cold or the truth. And the bracelet? My fingers itched to touch it again, to trace the S and A like Braille for a love letter I'd forgotten. He twisted it on his wrist, the metal catching moonlight. Our promise. Survive and adapt, you said, after I told you about my junkie mom and the foster homes that spit me out. We wore them like armor. A pause, heavy as lead. Then the fire. Your studio apartment in Bushwick. Faulty wiring, they said. You were inside, working late on that mural for the LGBTQ center. I got there too late. Pulled you out, but the smoke. It stole pieces of you. Coma for 6 months. When you woke, the doctors warned me. Amnesia, selective. You remembered your family, your art, but not us. Not me. The alley spun, memories crashing like waves against a crumbling pier. Flashes. Arthur's laugh echoing in a tiny kitchen as we burned pancakes. His body curled around mine during a blackout, whispering futures we believed in. The searing heat. Screams. His voice calling my name through the haze. I gasped, clutching my head. Why didn't you fight? Come to the hospital. Make me remember. Pain etched his features, deeper than any scar. I did. Every day. But your family, your sister, mostly, convinced you I was a nobody, a rebound from your real life. They saw my ink, my job, and wrote me off as trouble. And you looked at me like I was a stranger. It broke me, Sean. So I let go. Took a job here, buried myself in the noise. Betrayal stung, not just from my family, but from my own fractured mind. And Jake, I asked, voice cracking. He was. After. Arthur's jaw clenched. The guy who swooped in when you were vulnerable. I watched from afar, hating every second. But tonight, seeing you dance, that fire in your eyes, it was like glimpsing the old you. I couldn't stay away. We stood there, the city's hum a distant roar, until he crushed the cigarette under his heel and closed the gap. His kiss was tentative at first, a question posed in salt and smoke, then fierce, claiming what amnesia had stolen. Kissed back, hands fisting his shirt, tasting regret and redemption. But as sirens wailed in the distance, a shadow loomed, my phone buzzing with a text from Jake. Miss you. Come home. The conflict ignited, a spark to dry tinder. How do you rebuild on ruins when the foundation's laced with lies? The cab ride back to my place was a blur of yellow lights streaking past rain-slicked windows. Arthur's thigh pressed against mine in the back seat, a silent tether in the storm of my unraveling world. Brooklyn unfolded like a half-remembered dream. Brownstones huddled under sodium lamps, the East River a black ribbon glittering with reflected chaos. Your studio, Arthur murmured, his hand tracing idle patterns on my knee. The one that burned is rebuilt now. Tenants. But I drive by sometimes, wonder if the walls remember. I nodded, throat tight, the bracelet now on my wrist feeling like a handcuff and a lifeline all at once. Jake's text burned in my pocket, unanswered, a grenade with the pin half pulled. We'd been together 18 months, comfortable, if not passionate. Movie nights in his sleek Tribeca loft, brunches where he'd introduce me as his partner, with that polished smile that hid his wandering eyes. But passion, that had flickered out like a candle in wind, leaving ash and obligation. Arthur's presence beside me was the gale, threatening to scatter it all. We tumbled out at my walk-up on Atlantic Avenue, the stairs creaking under our weight like old bones protesting the load. My apartment was a testament to controlled chaos. Sketches pinned to walls, half-empty coffee mugs on every surface, a futon that sagged from too many solitary nights. Arthur paused in the doorway, filling it like a sentinel, his eyes scanning the space as if mapping ghosts. Nothing's changed, he said softly. The guitar in the corner, yours. The poster from that Dylan concert we crashed. I flicked on the lamp, casting warm pools of light that softened the edges. Play it for me, I said, half command, half plea. He hesitated, then crossed to the acoustic propped against the bookshelf, its strings humming faintly as he settled on the futon. His fingers, calloused from bar fights and broken bottles, danced over the frets with a gentleness that belied his size. The melody he coaxed out was haunting, a folk lament about lost lovers and rivers that carried secrets to the sea. His voice joined, low and gravelly, wrapping around me like smoke. In the hollow of your hand, I found my north slash, but the map burned, and I wandered forth. Tears pricked my eyes, unbidden. The song was ours. I knew it in my marrow, even if my mind played coy. When the last note faded, silence rushed in, thick and expectant. I crossed to him, straddling his lap in a move born of impulse and ache. "Show me," I whispered against his lips. "Show me us." What followed was a reclamation, slow and sacred. His hands mapped my body like a cartographer charting forgotten lands, fingers tracing the scar on my ribs from the fire, lips brushing the hollow of my throat where pulse thrummed wild. Clothes shed in whispers of fabric, skin meeting skin in the lamplight's glow. Arthur was everywhere, reverent, urgent, a tide pulling me under. He whispered my name like a prayer. "Sean, God, Sean," as if saying it enough times could etch it back into my soul. And in those stolen hours, tangled in sheets that smelled of laundry detergent and longing, pieces slotted home. Laughter in the dark as he recounted our disastrous road trip to the Grand Canyon, where we'd gotten lost and made love under star-pricked skies. The quiet mornings when he'd brew coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and I'd sketch him sleeping, sunlight gilding his lashes. But dawn brought the reckoning. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, painting stripes across his bare chest, and with it came the knock sharp, insistent. "Jake." I'd forgotten to text back, and now here he was, all tailored wool coat and furrowed brow, holding 2 to-go cups from our favorite spot in Williamsburg. "Sean, open up. I know you're in there, your light's on." Arthur bolted upright, sheets pooling at his waist, his face a mask of fury and fear. "Tell him to go," he hissed. But I was already moving, heart in my throat, pulling on boxers and a tee that hung loose. At the door, Jake's eyes narrowed, taking in my disheveled state, the flush on my cheeks. "Rough night?" he asked, voice edged with that passive-aggressive silk he wielded like a weapon. "You look wrecked." "It's nothing," I lied, blocking the threshold. "Just a friend crashed. Headed out soon." His gaze sharpened, peering past me into the dim apartment. Arthur stood now, jeans tugged on but shirtless, tattoos on full display, a gallery of survival. The serpent, a compass rose over his heart pointing nowhere. Jake's lip curled. "A friend? That the bouncer type you met last night? Jesus. Sean, you're spiraling. After everything, the accident, therapy, you're throwing it away on some low-rent hookup." The word accident hung like a guillotine. Jake knew about the fire. Of course, he'd been the one holding my hand through rehab, whispering encouragements that now tasted bitter. But Arthur, he stepped forward, voice a controlled thunder. "You don't know shit about us, pretty boy. Walk away." Jake laughed, sharp and hollow. "Us? Oh, honey, there's no us here. Sean's with me. Right, babe?" He thrust a coffee forward like an offering, but his eyes pleaded, "Don't do this. Don't unravel the life we've built." Conflict tore at me, a rift widening with every breath. Arthur was the blaze, consuming and alive. Jake, the hearth, steady but cold. "I need time," I said finally, voice breaking. "Just go, Jake. Please." He set the cups down hard, liquid sloshing over the rims. "Time? For what? A midlife crisis at 28? Call me when you're done playing house with the help." The door slammed behind him, echoing like a final judgment. Arthur pulled me close, his embrace a bulwark against the fallout. "He doesn't get to define you," he murmured into my hair. We do that. Together. But even as I melted into him, doubt gnawed. A whisper that maybe Jake was right, that I was chasing phantoms while my real life crumbled. Days blurred into a fever dream of rediscovery. Arthur called out from work, crashing at my place under the guise of helping me remember. We wandered Brooklyn like time travelers, hand in hand through Prospect Park, where he'd push me on swings until we collapsed laughing in the grass. Late-night diners where he'd steal fries from my plate, just like old times. He showed me photos on his cracked phone. Us at a queer film festival in Chelsea, arms linked defiantly. A selfie from Fire Island, wind-whipped and euphoric. Each image chipped away at the amnesia, rebuilding the man I'd been, bold, unapologetic, in love with a security guard who dreamed of opening a bar for outcasts like us. Yet shadows lengthened. My sister, Elena, called daily, her voice a scalpel. That Arthur guy's bad news. Sean. We protected you for a reason. Focus on Jake, he's stable. Stable. The word curdled in my gut. Jake texted apologies laced with barbs. Miss our life. This rebound won't last. And Arthur? He withdrew by inches, haunted by the fear of losing me again. One night, as we lay spent and sated, he traced the bracelet on my wrist. If you choose him, he said quietly, I get it. But don't lie to yourself. Or me. The climax brewed like thunderheads over the harbor. It broke on a Friday, rain lashing the city like divine wrath. I'd landed a gig, designing murals for a new LGBTQ youth center in the village, a callback to the work that nearly killed me. Arthur insisted on celebrating at the Pulse, our origin story twisted into fate. But as we danced, bodies slick with sweat and rain, Jake appeared, uninvited, eyes glassy from whatever he'd drowned his pride in. You think this is cute? Jake shouted over the music, shoving through the crowd to grab my arm. Dragging him into our mess? He's using you, Sean, to relive some fantasy that died in that fire. Arthur spun, fists clenched, but I stepped between them, heart pounding. Stop. Both of you. The club blurred, faces a kaleidoscope of judgment. Jake's words ignited something primal, the betrayal not just of family or exes, but of my own erased history. You never knew me, I spat at Jake. You loved the version without scars, without fire. Arthur? He pulled me from the ashes, but Jake wasn't done. He yanked out his phone, thrusting it forward. A photo, me, post-coma, blank-eyed in a hospital bed. Arthur at the bedside, but cropped out in Jake's version. He abandoned you. I was there when he bailed. Lies. The room tilted as Arthur's face drained of color. What? He whispered. The accusation hung in the strobe-lit haze like a noose, tightening around Arthur's throat as Jake's smirk gleamed triumphant. Yeah. Tough guy. Jake sneered, voice slicing through the bassline. Disappeared after a month. Left Sean to rot while I picked up the pieces. Check the dates, hospital logs don't lie. Arthur's eyes met mine, raw and pleading, but the seed of doubt had taken root, sprouting thorns in my chest. The dance floor emptied around us, patrons sensing the drama like sharks to blood, whispers rippling outward. Rain hammered the club's roof, a relentless drumbeat underscoring the fracture. Arthur, I said, my voice small, drowned in the din. Tell me he's wrong. He opened his mouth, but nothing came, silence more damning than any confession. Jake seized the moment, pulling me toward the exit with a grip that bruised. Come on, let's get you home. Away from this circus. I let him drag me, numb, glancing back at Arthur's silhouette, shoulders slumped in defeat, the bracelet on my wrist suddenly leaden. Outside, the downpour soaked us instantly, turning the alley to a river of neon reflections. Jake hailed a cab, his arm around me possessive, but victory soured his features. See, he can't even defend himself. You're better off, Sean. We both know it. The ride to his loft was torture. His hand on my thigh, a claim I no longer wanted. My mind replaying Arthur's silence like a looped nightmare. Betrayal layered upon betrayal. My family's meddling, Jake's opportunism, and now Arthur's ghosting, if true, it shattered the fairy tale we'd rebuilt on whispers and touches. Tribeca gleamed sterile under the wet streets, Jake's building a fortress of glass and privilege. Inside, the loft was all minimalist chic, white walls, Eames chairs, a view of the Hudson that mocked my turmoil. He poured wine, read as accusation, and launched into his script, apologies wrapped in I told you SOS. I saw how he looked at you, like a possession, not a partner. I love you, Sean. The real you, scars and all, but his touch, when he reached for me, felt like chains. I recoiled, the bracelet catching the light like a flare. Stop, I said, standing abruptly, wine sloshing untouched. This isn't love. It's convenience. You slotted into my gaps because I was broken, not because you saw me whole. The words poured out, cathartic and cruel. Arthur. Even if he left, he came back. Tonight. For me. Jake's face twisted, mask slipping. Came back? For what? A pity fuck? Wake up, he's a drifter. Sean. No future there. He stepped closer, voice dropping to that manipulative coo. Remember our plans? The cabin in the Catskills. Adopting that dog you always wanted? Stability. That's what you need after the fire. Stability. The word echoed Elena's warnings, a chorus of caution that had kept me leashed. But as thunder rolled outside, illuminating the skyline in jagged flashes, I saw it clear. Stability was stagnation, a pretty cage for a bird with clipped wings. I need truth, I countered. And you? You've been lying since day one, cropping him out of my story like some jealous editor. The fight escalated, words flying like shrapnel. Jake accused me of ingratitude, of chasing toxic nostalgia. I hurled back his infidelity, the late nights I pretended not to notice. It climaxed with him grabbing my arm, bracelet digging into flesh. You're mine, he growled. Ice feral. I wrenched free, storming out into the elevator, the doors closing on his shouts like a mercy. The subway ride back to Brooklyn was a descent into hell, crowded car reeking of wet wool, my soaked clothes chafing like penance. I clutched my phone, thumb hovering over Arthur's number, but pride or fear held me back. By the time I reached my walk-up, exhaustion had hollowed me out. The apartment felt cavernous without him, the guitar silent in accusation. I collapsed on the futon, scrolling through the photos he'd shown me, each one a dagger of what-ifs. Morning brought Elena, unannounced as always, her key turning like a trader's blade. She breezed in with lattes and concern, her yoga-toned frame clad in Lululemon that screamed West Village wellness. Heard about the blowout with Jake, she said, perching on the arm of the couch. Good riddance. But Arthur, Sean, we did it for you. After the coma, you were so fragile. He was intense. Pushy. The doctors said stress could trigger setbacks. I sat up, rubbing temples that throbbed like open wounds. Pushy or in love? You decided for me, Elena. Erased him like he was malware. Her eyes softened, but steel lurked beneath. Erased, we protected. He visited obsessively at first, ranting about bringing you back. But when you didn't remember, he cracked, yelled at the staff, got escorted out. It was chaos. We thought distance would help you heal. Fragments aligned. Arthur's desperation. My family's fear. Not abandonment, but a fracture born of grief. Where is he now? I demanded, grabbing my jacket. She sighed, defeated. Probably at that dive bar. But Sean, I was out the door before she finished. The city awakening in fits of honks and steam from manhole covers. The pulse loomed mid-morning, a hungover husk of its nighttime self. Inside, the bartender, a wiry queen named Ruby, eyed me warily. Looking for the big guy, stumbled in last night, drowned his sorrows in cheap bourbon. Muttered your name like a curse. Haven't seen him since. Heart sinking, I pushed on to his queen's walk-up, a narrow brownstone squeezed between laundromats and bodegas. The buzzer yielded no answer, but the super, a grizzled vet named Manny, let me in with a grunt. Third floor, kid. But fair warning, he looks like hell. Arthur's door was ajar. The apartment a time capsule of hard-knock resilience. Mismatched furniture. Boxing gloves hung on the wall. A window overlooking the 7 trains rattle. He was there, slumped at a scarred formica table, nursing a coffee gone cold, eyes red-rimmed and distant. The bracelet was gone from his wrist, tossed in a bowl like discarded hope. You came, he said flatly, not rising. Didn't think you would. After, I crossed the room, knees weak, and dropped to my haunches before him. Jake lied. You didn't abandon me. You fought. He laughed, bitter as bile. Fought and lost. They banned me from the hospital after I punched a wall. Scared you, they said. Your sister got a restraining order. I spiraled. Lost the job at the old club. Drowned in bottles. Thought if I vanished, you'd find peace. His hand trembled as he met my gaze. But seeing you at the pulse, it ripped the scab off. Stupid. I know. Tears welled. Hot and unashamed. Stupid's loving someone enough to let them go, I whispered, cupping his face. But don't anymore. We're in this fire. Amnesia. All of it. He pulled me up, into his lap, our foreheads touching like circuits reconnecting. Promise? He murmured, voice cracking. Survive and adapt. I echoed, the vow sealing us anew. But as we kissed, slow and healing, my phone buzzed. Elena, found something you need to see. About Arthur. Come home. The shadow returned, longer this time. Whatever she'd unearthed threatened to bury us before we'd fully risen. Elena's something was a manila envelope, yellowed and fat with secrets, waiting on her kitchen island like a Pandora's box wrapped in crosswords and chamomile tea. Her village brownstone was a sanctuary of bohemian order, succulents on sills, bookshelves groaning under queer theory tomes, the air scented with patchouli from her latest meditation session. But today, her usual zen cracked, eyes puffy from a night of soul-searching texts. "Before you hate me," she started, sliding the envelope across the quartz. "No, I did it out of love. For you. For us. Us, the Riley siblings, orphaned young by a car wreck that left her guardian and me adrift. She'd raised me through the awkward teen years, the coming out at 17 that she championed with pride flags and therapy referrals. But the fire, it had redrawn lines, turning protector into puppeteer. I snatched it, hands unsteady, Arthur's absence a hollow beside me. He'd stayed in Queens, giving me space to confront this alone. Inside, hospital discharge papers, emails from therapists, and at the bottom, a police report. My stomach plummeted as I scanned it. Arthur's name leaped out, bold and incriminating. Assault on medical personnel. Restraining order issued. Suspect claimed victimhood due to emotional distress over patient's amnesia. Assault, I choked, flipping pages. A grainy security cam still, Arthur, wild-eyed and roaring, lunging at a nurse who'd blocked his path to my room. Bruises on her arm, his arrest photo hollow-cheeked and haunted. Elena nodded, tears spilling. "It happened the day you woke fully coherent." He burst in, demanding you remember, shouting about the bracelet, your promises. The nurse intervened. He shoved her. Hard. "Sean, it was bad. I had to choose. Him unraveling you further, or peace. Peace." The word mocked me now, a gilded lie. I clutched the report. Visions assaulting. Arthur's desperation weaponized by grief. My family's fear calcifying into control. "You pressed charges," I accused, voice rising. "Made him a criminal to keep him away." Her face crumpled. "No, the hospital did. I just testified. For your safety." She reached for me, but I recoiled, the envelope crumpling in my fist. "He was violent, Sean. A risk. After the fire stole your memories, I couldn't lose you to his chaos. Violence." The label stuck like tar, coloring every tender moment with Arthur in shades of doubt. His hands on me, had they always been gentle, or was this the undercurrent, the serpent uncoiling? I fled her apartment, envelope tucked under arm like contraband. The village streets a gauntlet of brunchers and buskers oblivious to my implosion. Back in Queens, Arthur was mid-spar with a heavy bag in the building's basement gym. Sweat slicked and savage. Punches landing like accusations. He paused when I entered, gloves dripping, chest heaving. "Verdict?" he asked, peeling them off with teeth, hazel eyes wary. I thrust the report at him. "This." "Explain." He scanned it, color draining like ink in water. "Fuck," he breathed, sinking onto a bench, the bag swinging lazy arcs behind him. "I blacked out that day. You just asked for Jake. Your sister planted him as a friend to test you." He gutted me. I snapped. His voice broke, hands raking through damp hair. "Punched no one. Sean." Shoved her aside. "Yeah. But the report. Exaggerated. Community service. The order expired after a year. I kept my nose clean after. Exaggerated." The word echoed Jake's lies, Elena's omissions. But the photo didn't lie. His face was fury incarnate. A man unmoored. "Was it always there?" I demanded, pacing the concrete. The anger, under the songs, the kisses. He stood, closing the distance, but I held up a hand. "Don't." I need truth, Arthur, all of it. Mom's overdose. The Fosters. Did that make you a bomb waiting to blow? Pain flashed, raw as an open wound. It made me fight, he admitted. For scraps. For survival. But with you, it was different. You tamed it, saw the man, not the monster. He touched the empty spot on his wrist. That's why I gave up the bracelet. If I couldn't have you, I couldn't wear the lie. The gym hummed with the bag's sway, a metronome to my turmoil. Love, I realized, wasn't a fairy tale. It was this, peeling back layers of scar tissue, hoping the core gleamed gold. I believe you, I said finally, voice steadying. But we can't ignore it. Therapy. Together. No more ghosts. Relief flooded him, arms enveloping me in salt and solace. Together, he echoed, kiss fierce against my temple. Always, but fate, that cruel dramatist, had one more act scripted. 2 weeks later, as snow dusted the city like powdered regret, the call came, Elena, hysterical. The center, your mural gig. It's off. Someone leaked the report about Arthur. The board panicked. Optics, they said. For the kids. Rage boiled. Hot and immediate. The LGBTQ Youth Center, my Phoenix project, axed because of a 2-year-old stain? I stormed the board meeting in a converted Soho warehouse. Arthur at my side, his presence a shield. The suits, white, straight, performative allies, shifted uncomfortably as I laid it bare. The fire, the amnesia, the love they deemed unfit. You preach inclusion, I thundered, slamming the report down. But cancel a queer artist because his partner's human? Flawed? That's not allyship. That's hypocrisy. Murmurs rippled, but the chairwoman, a silver-haired donor with a rainbow pin, leaned forward. Mr. Riley, we sympathize, but donors are wary. Assault. Shove, Arthur interjected, voice even. A desperate shove from a man who'd lost everything. I've got references, a clean record since. Judge me on now, not then. The room tensed, powder keg awaiting spark. Elena, who'd arrived late and tear-streaked, stood. I leaked it, she confessed, voice shattering the silence. To protect you from him, from hurt. But I was wrong. So wrong. Sobs racked her, the protector unmasked as saboteur. Chaos erupted. Calls for her resignation from the advisory board, pleas for reconciliation. In the melee, Arthur squeezed my hand, a silent vow. The gig was reinstated begrudgingly, with stipends for therapy, but the real victory was Elena's apology, whispered over takeout that night in my apartment. Forgive me, she begged, eyes pleading. With time, I said, Arthur's arm around my shoulders a bridge. But no more playing God. As winter deepened, our love deepened too, human, imperfect. Arthur quit bouncing, enrolling in bartending school with eyes on that dream bar, Haven's End, a spot for the lost boys of New York. I painted feverishly, murals blooming with serpents and compasses, lovers rising from ash. Jake faded to a cordial ghost, his texts unanswered relics. Yet the deepest cut lingered, betrayal's echo, a reminder that trust was rebuilt brick by brick, not wished into walls. One blizzard night, snow blanketing Brooklyn in hush, Arthur proposed not with rings, but recreating our Brooklyn Bridge vow. Wind howled off the water. City lights a constellation below. Survive and adapt? He asked, slipping a new bracelet on, twin to mine, engraved S and A eternal. Forever, I replied, sealing it with a kiss as fireworks, illegal, defiant, burst overhead. Spring unfurled over New York like a hesitant truce, cherry blossoms dusting the high line in pink defiance against the concrete sprawl. 5 months since the boardroom blowout, and life had settled into a rhythm both foreign and achingly right. Mornings with Arthur's coffee brewing strong, his lips brushing my temple as I sketched at the kitchen table. Evenings wandering the village hand in hand, unapologetic in our queerness, drawing glances that ranged from envy to erasure. The youth center mural was half done, a sprawling tapestry of intertwined figures emerging from flames, symbols of resilience etched in vibrant cobalt and crimson. Donors grumbled, but the kids, they loved it, their sticky fingers tracing the lines during after-school sessions, eyes wide with recognition. Arthur thrived too, his bartending certification fresh, moonlighting at a cozy spot in Astoria called the Anchor, ironic, given how he'd once cut and run. No more running, he'd say, pouring craft IPAs with a wink. His serpent tattoo a conversation starter for patrons nursing their own wounds. We'd talk futures over late dinners. The bar, a joint loft in Bushwick, reconquering the fire's ghost. Maybe fostering one day, giving a queer kid the family we'd both craved. But humanism's grace is its fragility. Peace invites tempests. It struck on a muggy June evening, the kind where humidity clings like unspoken fears. Elena hosted a reconciliation dinner at her place. Roast chicken, her famous key lime pie, a tentative olive branch wrapped in linen napkins. She'd been therapy compliant, sessions unpacking her control freak tendencies rooted in our parents' crash. I couldn't save them, she confessed once. So I oversaved you. Progress, fragile as eggshell. Arthur arrived bearing wine, his button-down crisp, a far cry from the club brute. We laughed through appetizers, toasting small victories, my mural's upcoming unveiling, his bar pitch landing a micro-investor. But as mains cleared, Elena's phone chimed, innocuous at first. Then her face blanched, scrolling feverishly. "Oh God," she whispered, thrusting it toward me. A news alert, Queen's security guard charged in assault, repeat offender endangers community. Arthur's face stared back, mugshot fresh, time-stamped yesterday. The details blurred in my vision. A bar fight at the Anchor, a patron with a broken jaw, witnesses claiming Arthur snapped without provocation. Revived charges from the hospital incident. 2. Elena's leak had unearthed them, prosecutors circling like vultures. No, I breathed, phone slipping from numb fingers. Arthur's fork clattered, color fleeing his face. It's not fuck, Sean. Listen. But Elena was already rising. Voice shrill. I knew it. The anger. The violence. It's who he is. Chaos reigned. Accusations flying. Pie untouched congealing on plates. Arthur bolted for the door, but I followed, grabbing his arm in the hallway. Talk. Now. Outside, fireflies danced in the dusk, mocking our unraveling. He paced the stoop, hands fisting hair. The guy at the bar, homophobe, slinging slurs at a trans kid nursing a soda. I told him to leave. He swung first. Self-defense, Sean. But the cops. They saw the old report, twisted it, his eyes, tormented gold, locked on mine. I'm not that man anymore. Swear it. Belief warred with fear, the report's shadow eclipsing our light. Then fight it, I urged, pulling him close despite the tremor in my limbs. Lawyer up. We'll get through. But the storm swelled. Bail hearing the next day, judge. A stern woman with a rainbow flag on her bench but eyes like flint. Denied release. Flight risk. History of aggression. She intoned, hammer falling like fate's decree. Elena testified neutrally, but her presence stung, a ghost of meddlers past. Jake even slunk in, anonymous in the gallery, his smirk a venomous postscript. Solitary visits through plexiglass were crucibles. Arthur's voice tinny over speakers, his touch reduced to fingertips on cold partition. Read to me, he'd plead, so I'd bring sketch pads, describing murals in vivid strokes while he traced patterns on the glass, mirroring my lines. Love distilled to whispers, miss your chaos, he'd say. Miss your steady, I'd reply. But nights alone carved hollows, doubts whispering he'd always be a powder keg, that my heart was a moth to his flame. The trial was a 3-week gauntlet, Manhattan's courthouse a coliseum of suits and sobs. Witnesses for the prosecution painted Arthur as brute incarnate, the nurse's tearful recount, bar patrons embellishing slurs into savagery. Defense countered with character refs, Ruby from the Pulse, Manny the Super, even Elena recanting her leak as misguided protection. Arthur took the stand. Voice steady, I lashed out once, from a place of profound loss. But loss taught me grace. Sean taught me that. Jury deliberated 2 days, eternity in purgatory. I painted through it, finishing the mural in manic bursts. Lovers clasping hands across chasms, serpents molting into doves. The unveiling drew crowds, activists, kids, press sniffing scandal. As flashbulbs popped, my phone buzzed, not guilty. All counts. Come get me. Relief crashed like a breaker, sweeping me to Rikers in a cab that flew. Arthur emerged changed, thinner. I shadowed, but unbroken. We drove in silence at first, then laughter bubbled, hysterical and healing. Free man, he marveled, hand on my thigh. You're doing, back home. We made love like survivors, slow, sacred, reclaiming every inch. Dawn found us on the fire escape, city sprawling benevolent below, bracelets glinting in tandem. Epilogue whispers of humanism's core, not perfection, but persistence. Arthur's bar opened that fall, Haven's End, a beacon in Astoria with murals of my design on the walls. Elena became auntie in spirit, Jake a distant echo. We fostered our first kid a year later, a wiry teen named Alex, scars from conversion camps mirroring our own. In quiet moments, Arthur would strum the guitar, singing our lament-turned anthem. Love, we'd learned, wasn't immunity from betrayal's blade. It was the suture, the scar that toughens the skin. And in New York's relentless pulse, we thrived, 2 men, forged in fire, adapting eternally. As summer waned, we stood on that same Brooklyn bridge, wind off the harbor carrying salt and promise. To us, Arthur toasted with a flask of bourbon, eyes alight. To surviving, I replied, sealing it with a kiss. Below, the city thrummed, flawed, fierce, ours. And in that vast American tapestry of heartbreak and hope, we'd found our thread, woven tight, unbreakable.